My name is Navin Williams, and I'm based in Shanghai, China. But the way the technology works is we execute work all over the world, including the US. Today I'll talk about a case that we did with Millward Brown. I see two cases, one in India and one in Africa. And there the dominant phone are non-smartphones. So I've seen all the cases so far seem to be focused on smartphones. So this might be interesting in this market. Okay, we'll just, if you saw the first session, Nathan effectively stole my thunder. So I can quickly skip the whole next billion discussion, just to say that that'll all be in the developing world. And even within the developing world, there are markets that are more favored than others. If you look more than a decade ago, you had the emerging markets at half the developed world, and you fast forward now, just two countries are more than the entire developed world put together. Yeah. Coming to the profile of handsets in the world, you can see that the emerging markets, despite all the growth in apples, blackberries, and other kind of fruity edible stuff, ice cream sandwich and stuff, still 80% of all phones are non-smart. Yeah. And despite mobile being there in consideration for over a decade amongst researchers, like I did my first survey on SMS over a decade ago, and it was a phenomenal flop. For mobile to work, you cannot take online and just apply those rules. You need to change the rules. Multiple layers amongst the same sample. You talk about people who have basic handsets, you tell them to do limited stuff. Something smarter handsets, audio, video capture, and you can do a lot of other cool stuff. Yeah. And our researchers itself, not good enough if they're just good researchers. They need to have some knowledge of the technology that they're going to use, what can be done, what can't be done. And basically the growth of hybrid as a standard, instant reporting, fluid solutions, evolving with the market, the target audience, the technology at play. And also the researcher and client's comfort last, the consumer first. Yeah. Now I'll just hand over to Sherri for the cases.
So I'm here. Both of us are part of Millward Brown Global Innovations process, though. And this is important to us to bridge the digital divide, because we're one of those big global companies that were being talked about at the session earlier that has norms and has big companies, and they want to do all these different surveys, and we've got databases, and we want to work in multiple countries. So we've got to figure out some way where you've got poor infrastructure or low literacy rates, or there's a lot of cost sensitivity. How do we get to these folks? What do we need to be doing? So what we've got here is two cases that we tested with our partners here at Mobile Measure with Navin. And I want to share our results with you. This is in the spirit of what GFK said, which was try something. Okay? We tried something, we're seeing how it goes. What we did is we took our copy testing survey, we adapted it for mobile, and we tested to see what was going on and compared back to PAPI. So similar to what Tom was talking about from Nielsen. It's really important to see what you've got and where you're going. This is a critical product from Millward Brown. We've got 96,000 copy tests that we've done, over 9,000 of them in India. We want to make sure that we can do copy tests from whichever advertisers or whatever market they want to have. And we need to be able to compare apples to oranges if necessary. So this first case I'm going to show you, and I'll talk a little more, I'll show you also some pictures of the actual device, was in India. We did it in the 3 cities. There was a 45-second TV commercial that we had to show. And I think you might find this surprising. It was a 15-minute survey. It's very different than, was it 7 minutes, 10 questions, 7 variables, 140 characters, much longer. Several challenges that we had to solve in order to be able to do this. We had to be able to balance being able to see the ad with download speed and what people were willing to do. And of course we had to modify what was traditionally a paper and pencil questionnaire for something that's going to work on mobile. And we needed to make this work for multiple types of phones, whether we're talking about the lower end of the spectrum of phones that just were barely smart enough to be able to do this, to hiring. We wanted it to work on the phones that people had in their pockets. And we also found that we needed to modify the navigation, that we needed this to be self-instructive, if you will. You didn't need somebody to hold your hand as you worked your way through it. So we found that we were able to use pretty much all the types of questions that we typically would use in a survey. We were able to do single choice questions, and this is what it looks like on a feature phone, a non-smartphone. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we could, working with Navin and his group, we've got single choice, multiple choice, open-ended. By the way, we used pretty much the whole screen for that open-ended question rather than just a little text box. We had select options that would route you places. We even had, in this one particular case, where we asked people to register in order to recruit them, where we had multiple questions. So we were trying a whole bunch of different things here, trying to make sure that we got to what we need and learned how this was going to work. We also modified it so that it would work on a smartphone. And as you can see, some things, we tried very hard to have the same type of look and feel. Some things just are different on a smartphone than they are on a feature phone. So one of the learnings we have from that is that platform matters. That you need to make sure that, the folks that you've been seeing here, the tech folks who say that they can do it on Android and on Symbian and iOS and all that, that's important. It's not enough just to build it once. You've got to build it for each type of environment. So, what did we learn from doing the study? Well, the good news is that our data came in pretty in line with what we'd done parallel in the paper tests. And we found that people said that, yeah, we can do this. It's easy. What was really nice is the data delivery part. I think that if you've ever worked in a paper and pencil environment, just to get that data back and then be able to get the information back to your clients, or if you are the client, to get the information back from your supplier, it can take some time. So this really helped get us better data, faster data. Of course, some of the challenges had to do with the personal pieces, like people not being familiar with how to work with apps or downloading apps, or being concerned that somehow by downloading that app that something was going to happen to their phone. And we also found that we had some difficulty in recruiting. You can't just use an online recruitment and say, hey, would you come do this on your phone? We ended up having to do some face-to-face, like role intercept type of recruiting, which actually worked a lot better for us. So here's our pictures of what the data looked like. For our key metrics, other than that very one odd one about new news, new information, we saw pretty similar results, whether we did it by paper or we did it by mobile. So that was very encouraging. So in order to then take that and say, well, is this just India? We do so many tests in India. Let's do it someplace where we do fewer tests and see what happens there. And we took this to Kenya, and there we found the same type of high-level findings that if you do it on mobile, you do it on paper. It's not the same. I mean, and those were index numbers I showed you. So it's not the same numbers, but we would be able to give the same advice to our client based on those numbers. So screws the norms in terms of numbers, but doesn't screw the research. All right. We did see some interesting things where we saw some top boxing, where people choose, 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 or whatever, more than they would on the paper environments. And we don't have an answer for why that happened. That's something we need to continue to investigate. But similar to India, we also found that people liked doing this. And they'd be willing to do it again, which is always important in research. Now, keep in mind, that was a 15-minute survey in India. It's a 14-minute survey in Kenya. They did, I got 5 minutes left. Okay, I'm going to hurry because he's got more to say. Same results on the high-level stuff. Some of the details about emotions and comprehension was a little different. We don't know why, something to investigate. But see some of the same issues on privacy and some lack of trust. So what do we know from this is that it's worth trying. There's more to learn from it. We're really pleased to be able to work on this and to make our products work on mobile as they need to, as it works in the emerging markets. Thank you, Navin.
Okay. One of the good things about being in this space, I've been running this company for 3 years. Before that, I was in Nielsen, and before that with RI. You get a clean slate. There are no norms. There are no indexing. So after 3 years, I'm still in the same spot. So I get to experiment with a lot of stuff, and this is just some of the stuff that I'm working on that I just thought I'll share with you. So sentiment analysis. There's a lot of talk about big data. So we are doing some stuff there. Yeah, it's not strictly a lot of to do with mobile only, but with Twitter and the Chinese equivalent of Weibo becoming more and more important. We just thought that let's see what we can learn out of this. The other thing that we're working on is helping some of our partners move their panels to mobile and to get a seamless kind of experience without the consumer having to wear like a harness on his laptop. Yeah, more of a smooth experience, whatever they use. So this is just some of how it looks. Yeah. And something very interesting, I have it on my iPad, I think. If anyone's keen, I can show it to you. One of the, it has great application in Shopper. The demo that I have is like you can take a photograph of a room, and it's for an electronic manufacturer, and you can place an air conditioning unit or a fridge anywhere in the photograph and turn it around, increase, reduce the size. So these are 3D images that you can play around with. It's pretty cool stuff. Definitely no norms there. Yeah. Then a lot of talk on gamification of surveys and things like that. Now, gaming is a huge industry, and the production value for gaming is very, very high. So unless we as researchers are prepared to match such production standards, I think we won't be able to successfully take advantage of that. This is something, again, we are talking to someone. They have this facial recognition technology, and we are just trying to see how we can move it to mobile. Some of these things, like the 3D stuff, and this probably will work only using smartphones. Yeah, so that's the space that we are in. So with some phones we'll be able to do very cool stuff and some not so cool. Okay, now the other thing that we see is, non-traditional research companies muscling into our space. One of the things that I see is that it's not going to dislodge us. We as researchers, as long as we continue to deliver value, there's space for everyone. Thank you.
You mentioned about the mobile users top boxing responses. Were there any other trends that you noticed in that same vein?
That was the only one we found that was worth mentioning, worth calling out. There were people that were insecure about downloading apps. So there's the whole education piece about that, and finding the right people. But in terms of data, that was the one thing that's worth calling out.
Like the penetration of mobiles may be very high, but they may not have data plans. So often you recruit someone and then they don't have a data plan. So even if you're willing to pay for their data plan, it's no difference to them. They didn't use it before, they aren't going to use it now. So that's a waste of an incentive, because that's not an incentive. You're just enabling him to do something you want him to do. So generally what happens is that if you're going to give them a data plan, then you need to incentivize them over and above that. And train them, because they are not used to downloading apps and doing a survey.
Thank you. Great presentation. A question for Navin. What the technology you used for the feature phone survey, was that WAP? What kind of protocol was that you were using?
No, that was an application actually for Symbian Java phones. Yeah.
Actually, he downloaded it to my BlackBerry. Someone wants to come by and show it to you.
That would be Java, right? If it wasn't. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Michael Wolf from Bottom Line Analytics. I have a question for you. I hope somebody could answer it for me honestly. I used to work at Coca-Cola, and one of my colleagues used to call two different types of research companies. One type of research company called soundbite research companies. As you can imply, it's somewhat a cynical term of, research without depth. And I know you've played both sides of the research with mobile and other. I really would like an honest assessment of, mobile research is, surveys, in small bites. And
yeah.
I was just in the other room where the lady showed community space about, something on mobile was 3 words and something in the traditional recorded was 2 paragraphs.
Right.
So, fundamentally, Coca-Cola used to say that the soundbite research companies were the ones that never got hired twice. If research is in the business of insights, and this stuff really is ending up kind of being soundbite research, where is it taking the market research industry? Okay. And maybe you don't agree with this, and I'd say, okay, fine. Tell me or show me that it isn't.
Yeah, it's not the cure for all, so it's not a replacement. Anyone trying to sell you that is, I don't think that's correct. I don't believe in that. But there are certain areas in research that mobile plays a role exceedingly well and exceeds traditional methods often. I've seen that in Shopper. I've seen that in a lot of categories which are impulse, beverages included, cosmetics consumed on the go. So a lot of chocolates, donuts. So there are a lot of cars. So there are a lot of products that people use, and you can seek feedback at the point of consumption. which you can't do on recall-based methods. I think an example will illustrate it best. Like we did something on Shopper, and there was a new product. It was Shopper and consumption. So there was a new bottle, packaged bottle of beverage which was introduced, and it was new packaging, revolutionary, and they had already done research which was offline, face-to-face, and the results were, the responses were generally why they purchased the product was because when they were passing by, they were thirsty, and they rationalized why they did something. While on the mobile, almost all responses were that it looked cool, the color was different, it stood out, they saw it for the first time. Responses which don't lend itself to logic, it was spontaneous responses. So I think, I hope I answered your question. So I think some areas, yes.
As good as anybody has.
Okay.
Thank you.